How's it going, everybody? My name is Elvira Gonzalez, and this is another video on the course Intermediate React version 5, a course taught by Brian Holt, a software engineer that has previously worked at Microsoft, Netflix, Reddit, Snowflake, which is a data lake service, software as a service, and currently he is the VP of products at SQLite Cloud. So the entire reason of recording this series of videos, especially from this course, from Frontend Master, is to learn how to write production-ready React applications. So why is that? In my particular case, because I'm dedicating time and energy to develop these software applications, and I also want to improve my communication skills and learn more about how to solve the client's problems. So by looking now at this particular course and understanding is this advanced techniques and tools that allow us to do that, techniques like code splitting, server-side rendering, testing, as well as transition, and tools like Typescript, Tailwind, and Redux, so we can now, any company that wants to, or any individual that use React as a way to host their web applications or their online business, so I can get in and solve the problem pretty fast. So also to recognize that as a software engineer and as any person, time is the most important factor in your life. Why is that? Well, because once you're able to solve someone else's problems, or specifically your problem first, and then somebody else, if you can do it as fast as possible, then you will have time to not only pondering about what you have done, but also having time to have better problems. And I say quote, quote, because in my particular case, because I came from Venezuela, so back then the things that I really cared about was to what am I gonna eat today? And as I solve those problems by migrating from Venezuela to Argentina and now living here, I developed a new perspective and a new set of challenges. It's like, okay, so for how long can I now have enough resource or money to live without need to work? All right. So for example, 9 months, 12 months, okay? And with that, I can now, instead of thinking daily, which is tactical, now I can think more strategically, which is in the long run. Okay, so enough of talking a lot of S in French toast like that. So the reason of today's video is that we're going to now look at Typescript, this particular tool of React, and make a quick recap over these 3 models from the course. Hooks in depth. In there we look at what are the main hooks that we can use, especially to cover advanced scenarios. Remember that this technology is made by Facebook to solve Facebook problems. So most of those companies wouldn't have, or they don't need, they perhaps never face those kind of challenge. But it's important to at least to understand what are those specific use cases. So when you find a client with those needs, you say, okay, this is what we can use this. We look at the use ref that allow us to get a reference of an HTML element or a computation and then do something in the future, okay? Or do something that when we need to. Okay, use reducer, which is a fancy name to say I got an state that I'm going to apply in actions to generate a new bit of state out of it. Then I also look at use callback and memos. So for example, if you want to reduce expensive computations or to minimize expensive computations and reduce re-rendering components, this is most of the time the use case, go with them. And the other is use layout and use ID. So use layout is especially good when you want to let or run a particular function or callback after the user modify is a particular element on the screen, on the browser, the layout. Again, very narrow specific. And the other is the use ID. So with the use ID, the thing here is for forms. When you want to give labels to forms, do not use for list rendering as I identify that. Use the data from the backend, and then if you can have that data, it's preferably to use is UUID, which is a library that allows you to have unique identifiers or identifiers. Okay, and then we look at tailwinds. This will help us on how we can write CSS classes. It's not gonna tell you how your components or how your elements will look like, unlike Bootstrap in material design. So for example, if you build a particular website with using those design systems, it will look like them, which is great. For example, for web internal apps, where you need things that be at least good enough, okay, that look good. And in the case of tailwinds, so for example, if we want to now do something perhaps more creative or for creative agency, from their website, Tailwind says that it is way much more easy to maintain HTML code than CSS, large code bases, or than large CSS code bases, sorry. How does it work? I look at the anatomy of the Tailwind. You have the compiler, the transpiler, as well as the autoprefixer. We look at how we can start using that, how we can extend the functionality of the Tailwinds, how important it is to stay on the Tailwinds and not using your own CSS class, and also how we can define layouts here, which is one of the great things that Tailwinds allow us to do. So by defining certain viewports and endpoints, we can now by using specific CSS class, determine how your website will gonna look like depend on the end device, whether it's a mobile, a tablet, a laptop, 4K. Okay, that's something important and powerful, because now we can optimize is the user experience here, even though that web applications on the or navigating the web is a suboptimal experience, especially for compare with laptops and desktop. All right, but the whole point of this is to try to make that much more easy to maintain, to debug, as well as to enhance, well, improving the user experience, which leads to user conversion, user it leads to user retention and user conversion. Okay. Then I also look at this advanced React techniques or advanced React performance, which is code splitting and server-side rendering. This is part of the core of frameworks like Next.js, okay, in or Nox, but in the case of Next.js, because it's React, this framework, that after all is just JavaScript, okay. And the idea here is that recognize in the case of code splitting and server-side rendering is first we need to, or the value proposition of this is we want us to make the initial page load time as fast as possible by loading only the necessary code to teach our app to get up and set up everything to show something to the users, and then in the background load everything what you need. Okay, this is important to have a particular budget here when you say, hey, this is the threshold that we want to stay under, or the performance timing that we want to hit. Once you define that, it is great because now you're gonna actually do the code splitting, and that is letting the React handle that for you using a particular function called lazy to determine which one of these components you want to defer them or lazy load them, load later in the future. So again, the key here is balance, because you want to do that, for example, for components that are 30, 50, 100 Ks. Your metrics will vary here. Otherwise, you're going to increase the amount of requests or chunks that the client needs to access through the server. So you don't want to do that, and because actually that is make your application slower. The idea here is to make the app more faster. And then I also look at how does it work. Okay, so how the code splitting know which request do we need to hit to the server, and which one of them, and where these components are stored, So these model bundlers, Vite, Babel, Parcel, Webpack, Parcel, they now generate is something called a manifest.json that have this set of instruction that teaches the service worker, hey, this is the resource we want to access. This is the request we want to access. Okay, and when you have them, catch that, and as long as other configuration. But the idea here is to say, hey, this manifest will instruct the service worker. What is a service worker? Well, it is something that is live on the browser that sits between your app requests and the API response. So the idea here is, as I mentioned, this service worker enable is these offline capabilities, which is one, push notifications, and make your web applications something that you can play nicely with native applications in terms of functionality. Okay, so that's go beyond the scope of this course. It is also interesting to look at that because at the end of the day, this is something useful. For example, code splitting, the use case of code splitting. So for example, if you are building an app for farmers watering their crops, or for field management service where they have poor call coverage, field service field service management serv- field management services, uh, for example, like holding service on a well in a site is bottled water, or something that require works in the field where there is a poor call coverage. Okay, so for example, installing antennas in remote areas. This is one example. Uh, okay, so this is the particular use case for code splitting. For example, if you're building an application like Ubercopter, where you can assume that your users will have a decent connections, so now your budget is less sensitive than those apps that you need to build for poor call coverage. This is code splitting. And the other is server-side rendering. So the idea here is that because we want now is to improve the initial render time, okay, about what is the thing that the users needs to look at first time, okay, and once they look at that and try to understand what your page is doing, load everything in the background. So especially when you're doing this kind of thing, code splitting and server-side rendering, so this is pretty much like playing the shell game. So if I make my initial page faster, if I make my initial page load faster, my time deck, in my interactivity time deck is making it worse. The key is balance. So server-side rendering focuses on what is the first thing that the user wants to see, and the code splitting is load the bare minimum instructions that your application needs to set up everything in well with server-side rendering. Show anything faster, as fast as possible. So show something as fast as possible, so you can in the background load everything that you need to. So server-side rendering is something that, because the way how we are building applications, you will have to now is the client code and the server code, both of them in JSX, because the way how we are now building server-side applications. Okay, so back in the old day, what we did is just to generate the entire HTML to the or the entire HTML back to the user, and we send that back to the user. Okay, but now we are going to do things using streams. It means that because back in the old day we did something called round trip. You can think of this as commuting. Okay, so if you want, for example, some food, you go to Chipotle or Walmart, Costco, 7-Eleven, you name it, but you have to do that travel and go back to your home. Okay, you can stay at that and eat there. Okay, but let's assume that you want to go back to your home. So because this is the way how this thing works, especially anytime that you type to Google, then you send the request to those servers, those computers, and then they reply you with something that the browser understand, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They transform that into pixel on the screen, and now you can see, oh, this is the website that I would like. This is the website that I expect to. Okay, this thing is slow. And with things like client-side rendering, uh, yeah, with things like in order to make things much faster, there is something called client-side rendering, uh, which is one, and the other is server-side rendering. The idea here is to, as the user navigate through our apps, we're going to hydratate or load chunk of our applications as they're moving into our app. So this is pretty much like if you're playing old video games like Doom, or not that old video games, for example, Zelda. Uh, so you were on like video games like Fortnite and the kind of thing that you can now see on the end of the universe, right? In those games, back in the old day, they load things as they appear, and they have a particular range of vision because it is expensive, and we having enough resources back then to actually process all of that and to show that. So because of that, this is pretty much an analogy of how we are loading things in the client. We are hydratating. And I would like to someone actually correct me here, especially in the case of service here. I would like someone correct me here if this is a good analogy of how now we are doing the client-side rendering and server-side rendering. Okay. So, because of that, we have now the client code, which means that as a navigator, as the user is in the field, okay, well, we like now is to show them components and render things as they going through our app, as they're navigating through our app. This is one scenario. And the other scenario is, for example, is a user know where to look at it, okay? So for example, in the first scenario, you have an e-commerce when perhaps the user doesn't know about the interface, or he wants to actually search to buy something for their dog or their cat, okay? They go in there, they say, okay, this is good, this is what I want to, this is the product details, all right. But if the user already knows where to look at it, he will go to type the URL, okay? Or perhaps he store the URL and then copy and paste that. So now we need to send a request to the server. And this is where these two files come into place, the client and the server. So here's when you tell React, hey, I want you to hydratate the content on the client, and then I want you to stream that data as soon as they are available to the client. It is on the server code. So when you do this, okay, we need to now, especially when you're going to build your application so it can be understood by the browser, okay, to say, all right, once I generate the necessary code and make it JavaScript for the client and for the server, then I need to instruct my server to actually do the magic here. And that is stream the data once React or stream the data once this is available. So once React make this available. So in there we define is to load the asset using Express for that, and also once you want to load the index.html that was generated for our assets, or in this case for the model bundler, in our case beat, that was generated by that, and then say, okay, now with this HTML, which is something that we're gonna send that, we want is to take this in two parts. So the first part is where we're going to set the headers, okay? Where we have all of the data that is relevant for the browser to understand that, where we're going to load all of our assets. And the second section, or the second part, is the body. But we want now to React inject here our applications as the framework builds it. That's when we use is the output generated by the server, which is a render app, and then here we're going to pass as a second parameter an object where it's going to detect those change, those streams, which is in our case here. Okay, perhaps this is a lot of jargon. I'm clear about it. So, which is here. This is when we say, hey, anything that is not a static assets, so let React handles that. And here is when we actually is handling all of our stream of data, which is a data type on Node that is helpful for processing huge amount of data in small chunk as they are available. This is not a concept from Node. This is a concept from computer science. So in any case, this is what we constructing here, okay? If SEO is a concern, so you want your applications rank as fast as possible, okay? So streaming is slow for search engine. Why? Because they want to, so their crawlers or those applications or those programs that actually look at their website, look at the content, and then he rank them. Okay, so he look at the he look at your website and then rank that. That's the job of the web crawler or this program, this agent. You can think of them as a person, okay? Digital person. So because of that, so instead of transmitting those chunks as they are available, you would like is to now do that all at once here on already. So this is a good introduction of what is doing behind the scenes about the server-side rendering. So the end goal of server-side rendering and the code splitting, okay, the value proposition, the code splitting is to make the initial page load time faster, okay, with the goal of improve the user experience for user retention and user conversion. And with the server-side rendering is to improve the initial page render time, or improve the initial render time, and depend on if SEO is something that matter for you, then you can do that for that. Then I look at something called low priority re-rendering. Remember that this is something that was designed for Facebook, okay? And because of that, the TLDR of this, especially on the user for value, is that when, or this is when you want to do, this is when you want to load something. Okay, this is when you tell to React, hey, we're about to load something heavier. Okay, you use the fur value here. So there is a notion here of high priority and low priority rendering. Okay, use the fur value Okay, this is when you have to, when you are, exactly, when you already load something heavy and you want to do something about it. Okay, and the use transition is when you are going to tell the React, hey, we're gonna do something heavier. So this is these two main branch here. Use you use the fair value to say, hey, uh, I have something that is expensive that I want to do something here, especially useful for network operations. Okay, and the other is for use transition. So use transition say, hey, I'm going to do something. I'm gonna load something that is heavier, and I want you to do something. Both of them deal with these different scenarios. They want to do something based on something that is heavier. That is something that you already have that, or you're going to do something about it. Remember that the entire reason of this is because companies like Facebook, a second of delay is hundreds or is millions of dollars for them. So here, seconds matters. So they have dedicated teams in Iceland, where they have PMs, designers, and engineers, where they look at different UI Iceland, such as news feeds or posting box or ads. So that's the reason why they have these particular use cases, when their focus is on the user, uh, the user perspective. All right, that's interesting, and that was great, because now we're going to take a look at the next topic, which is really which is Typescript here. Something that I'm quite familiar with. Okay, so Typescript here. Typescript. All right. And here we go.
We are going to get into.
Well, actually, you're not going to see what I'm gonna do. I'm just going to take notes out of this particular course. Okay. I'm just gonna take out of this particular core. I'm not recording myself. What I'm not recording is the video here as a thumbnail or something like that, because legal outcomes or legal, because yeah, legal stuff, especially with proprietary content, that kind of thing. So
TypeScript, and specifically React with TypeScript together. So this is definitely not going to be a full intro to TypeScript, or even really a full intro to React and TypeScript together. Mostly what we're going to talk about is we're just going to talk about, we have this existing application. What's it like to migrate that to TypeScript?
okay. So in this section, we are going to see how to migrate our React code base into TypeScript. Okay. We are not going to see what TypeScript is, what it does. That's another video. Okay. Okay.
And along the way, you'll pick up a little, some TypeScript things here and there.
Okay, that's another video. And that's another course, by the way. That's another course. So you can pick up when you like it. Okay, so this is setup TypeScript. Okay. Actually, if this is something, and there's a lot of things. Okay. So Brian explained the benefit of TypeScript while configuring the application. Okay.
There. But specifically, before we got too much into this, I want to call out two courses that if you're interested in React and TypeScript, one, first take Mike North's course. Mike North, he's my coworker. He was
Mike North. Okay, so for example, this. From that. Yeah, I'd leave that because I'm waiting here.
my coworker at LinkedIn, and now we just hired him to be on my team at Stripe, which is awesome. He has this course here, TypeScript Fundamentals. Take that one first. It's a good one. And then after that, take Steve's course, which is React and TypeScript.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then the other is, okay, this is the fundamentals. Okay, this is TypeScript fundamentals, like so. Yeah, TypeScript fundamentals. No. And then React and TypeScript, right? Okay, cool. So this is also some courses here. So for example, service worker. This is TypeScript fundamentals, and then you have is the React and TypeScript here. That's right. Okay. There you got it. All right. Then you got this one. And the fundamentals of that. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, move on.
Together. So Steve gets much more in depth. This is a 5-hour course just on React and TypeScript together. So if that's really what your jam is, that's your progression forward from here. That being said, I want to show you what our Adopt Me pet application looks like if you migrate it totally to TypeScript. So this is kind of just a useful exercise for you to witness, like, I have a JavaScript app. What's it like going from a JavaScript app to a TypeScript app? Okay. I love TypeScript, just for the record. The VS Code team and the TypeScript team at Microsoft are the same team. So I used to work with all the TypeScript people. And so I'm always really happy when I get to work with it. Okay, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do npm install TypeScript at 4.4. Make sure you're starting with a fresh copy of Adopt Me. All right, so I'm just making a copy of that 14 context directory. It's this one here, yeah. And then I'm gonna go into the directory. I'm going to remove node modules and reinstall all of my node modules. Okay, and then I should be ready to go.
Okay.
So I have a fresh copy of my project. And then now I'm going to say npm install -D TypeScript at 4.8.4.
Okay. Set up TypeScript here. Chill, bro. Chill. Okay.
Cool. Next thing I want to do here is I'm going to run npx tsc, which is the TypeScript compiler, right? And then I want to run that with dash dash init. So that's just like we did for Tailwind. It's going to like start a whole project for us.
Okay. This is code splitting, and now we go back to the context here. That's right. Okay. Not quite sure if we actually is git status here. We git range git remote, git URL origin. Okay. No, but I want is to, in fact, is create is a new one. Yep. That's here. That's here. Okay. And there we got it. Okay. Okay, I want a new repo here. That's right. I'm not sure if this is React. Okay, which is here. Yep. Cool. Cool. Yep. That's right. That's right. Okay. I want now to add git add remote git remote add okay. If I say git remote get URL repo L, that's right, which is from my username. Okay. So what I'm doing here is to actually okay, what I'm doing here is to wait, what am I showing here? But I don't think it's this one. No, I don't think it's this one yet. I don't think it's this one. In fact, it's just showing something else. Ah, you got it. Now it's updating. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is just add in this remote repo. Make a commit here to say, hey, this is code splitting in server side rendering. Server side rendering. Okay, that's great. So then I can say, hey, git push origin to that repo. Okay. And we should be able to see those changes here, which is right, exactly. Okay. That is good. Cool. So now we need to move this to this, which is the context here for that, which is the context here. That's right. Let's gonna open here the context, the context I think it's 14. No. What is this? We are where we are. Pre-working directory. We were in the server-side rendering. Okay. Oh, okay. Now let's go to the context here. Okay, and in context is where we're going to install is Typescript. So you can take a look at the documentation here of Typescript here and say, okay, let's go now to install that or download it. Okay, but for our version, we need to install this a specific version of Typescript, which is version 4. Okay, currently they are now at the version, let me see, version 5. Oh my god. Okay, but it's okay. The idea here is to see how we can look at React JavaScript code and transform it into a Typescript code.
4.8.4. Cool. Next thing I want to do here is I'm going to run npx tsc, which is the TypeScript compiler, right? And then I want to run that with --init. So that's just like we did for Tailwind. It's going to like start a whole project for us. You'll see that it's going to generate here a TypeScript config for us.
File. Exactly. So, which means that let me go to our notes here. All right, and here in our notes will be something like this. So install for this project a specific version. Okay, which is this. All right, run the so run the initial run the initial, so run the file. Okay, npm install -d Typescript, run the file. Npm install -d Typescript, and then run the compiler init config command, which is, hey, npm, I want you to run this binary, whether it's local or remote, but find me this tsc with the init flag. That's what we're doing here with this line of instruction, which is something that now I want you to say, hey, let me run that. Is he mentioned that we generate that with a never here? Oh, because it was in it. Exactly, it was invalid argument. Exactly, and he create our new configuration. So you can see here it creates a new configuration here for us. After we run this command, it say, hey, I'm creating this using the EXIS 2016, which is what I'm going to compile after that. Following is the command GS. Okay, this model resolution, which is something that I need to change that, or yeah, I think I need to change that, because we want now to use is the EX6. Okay, make it strict. ES model interoperability. Perhaps we don't need to change anything here, because it's gonna find a way to make this available, so you can work with CommonJS or ES6 model, skip lib check, and for consistent casting in file name. So this is the folder that it generates for us. So all of this is this fine tuning, this thing that you can control. So pretty much like the knobs on your oven or your stove, or the configuration in your TikTok application. Okay. Yeah, the configuration of your TikTok application or Instagram, Twitter, you name it. So all of this, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's just like we did for Tailwind. It's going to like start a whole project for us. You'll see that it's going to generate here. Over here, I have this little minimalistic one here that we're going to use.
Exactly. As I look at this exactly, you need to. Okay. You need to make Typescript context aware.
So target ES 2022, so the latest version of
ECMAScript, exactly. So we have a config file for this project. Okay, we got is this. Oh, let me actually make it much more easy to read. Okay. Yeah, like so. Target. There you got it. In this project, so here we say is
ECMAScript. The flavor of JSX that we're going to use is React JSX. There's several versions of this. I do not remember what the difference is. We used to do preserve here, I think, right? But now we have to do React-JSX, and I'm trying to remember exactly what that does differently.
Okay, so hitting the target, we're saying yeah, on the target here. Following command. The following config. Yeah, for the following config, what target? Will be compiled to exactly. So here we're saying is this target is what the Typescript compiler code will generate. Okay, and this is using is the kind of the latest ECMAScript. Okay, the target is what the Typescript compiler code will generate, or in this case, what is the Typescript compiler ECMAScript, script code version will generate, be specifically like that. GSX is the flavor we want to recognize, okay, as well as the model and all of this kind of thing.
I think it means that we don't have to import React anymore. It's something like that. So this is the newer way of doing it. Modules, we're doing the new way of doing modules. We're doing node modules, yes. Module interop, yes.
Models here, the models we are doing the modern way of doing this, okay.
Strict mode. If you're going to migrate a whole project to React, you want to have strict mode enabled. If you're just starting, like let's say you have a huge code base and you're just going to piecemeal start doing little pieces of it, that you can turn strict mode off. And then, yeah, we don't want to check our node modules. So that's basically everything. Piecemeal start doing little pieces of it, that you can turn strict mode off.
Okay. So if you are integrating, exactly, if you're integrating, yep. So if you're integrating a piece of code, it'll makes more sense to set strict to false for that. Okay.
And then, yeah, we don't want to check our node modules. So
okay, this is just for this is just to letting the compiler, this is what we want to generate that. Okay, and now we need to find a way to integrate that with our dev server, which is Beat.
That's basically everything.
Or a model
here.
bundler.
So nice little minimalistic TypeScript config here. Okay, save that.
Sorry.
Cool. So next thing that we need is we need the types for React. React is not itself written in TypeScript. I believe it might be written in Flow, or it might just be written in JavaScript. I can't remember. In any case, it does not have types that ship with it, so we have to say down here npm install -D at types /react at
Okay.
18
that makes sense.
0.21 and at types /react -dom at 18.0.6.
That makes a lot of sense. Yep. Okay. So running or installing installing and running initial config. Okay. Oh my god, what? No, chill. Okay. Exactly. Installing and running the initial config, which is something that is quite familiar with a lot of things that you're going to install. And then the types. Installing types for React. Installing React type. Okay. Which is this. This is what we're going to install here. Again, this is something that must match your version that you're using.
So if you're not familiar with this, we just installed these types files here. So basically what TypeScript is going to say, like, okay, I can see that React doesn't have types with it. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go look in your node directory and see if you have any of these types file. There's a massive project called definitely typed, where if a library doesn't have types in it because it's not written in TypeScript or something like that. someone later can go and write types for it, and then you can install them separately, which is exactly what we've done here. And for example, we don't have to install one for like React Query. We don't have to install one for React Router DOM because both of these are written in TypeScript as is. Therefore, we don't need additional types because they are inherently already typed.
Exactly.
Cool. So, I guess if you're not familiar with TypeScript, one, I'm impressed that you've gotten this far into an intermediate React class with like not having been exposed to it, so congratulations. But basically, we have Prettier to handle all of our formatting. We have ESLint to handle all of our
code leading,
like stylistic choices about our code. We'll eventually have unit testing to test like all the integrations, and TypeScript is going to follow all of the types of our code.
Is it correct?
I mean, the classic example is that you can't do things like, you know, const x equals 5 and then x dot to uppercase, right? People like to say that TypeScript prevents things like this, which is true, it does, right? I don't really have this problem too much, to be totally frank with you. What is much more helpful is it's like basically live documentation about what your code looks like.
Then you make it. So value proposition of TypeScript is like coding, live coding documentation of a library, of a package.
I don't really have this problem too much, to be totally frank with you. What is much more helpful is it's like basically live documentation about what your code looks like.
Live coding documentation about how your code will look like.
So every time that you do something like, hey, I have this use breed list here, you can see that I have this animal any and all this kind of stuff. This is actually all generated from TypeScript running on your code. So VS Code, no matter what you're doing, is running TypeScript on your code all the time. And it generates all these kind of call signatures. So you can see this use breed list, because it's one that I wrote, doesn't really have too much interesting information about it. But if I go look at like use state, you can see I actually have a ton of information there that I have this initial state that's a string. I have a React dispatch, which has a set action state, which is of a string type. It has a bunch of information, interesting information about it, which is coming from those types that we just installed, right? This is great, but right now we only have it for our library code. I love TypeScript because now, once we go do all of the typing for all of our code, we're going to start seeing all of that for our code as well. So like I said, it's like living documentation of the intention that you had when you wrote this code.
Live coding documentation about the intent of how you code. Okay.
Once we go do all of the typing for all of our code, we're going to start seeing all of that for our code as well. So like I said, it's like living documentation of the intention that you had when you wrote this code.
Live coding documentation of the intention about when you write this code. This is the value proposition of TypeScript. Live code, especially for real-time developers. Okay, again, for the value proposition of developers. Okay, live code documentations of the intention about when you write this code, or when someone you have when you wrote this code. Exactly, because it's the intention about you had. Yeah, it's the intention about you had when you wrote this code.
Right now I know I provide use breed list and animal of any. What is any? We don't know, right? But after we're done with this, we're going to see if it's of type animal, which is going to be an enumerated type, which is going to be only one small subset of animals. And so if I try and put something in here like horse, right? Well, horse is an animal, but it's not one that our API supports. So we're actually going to have TypeScript catch that error for us, which I think is pretty cool. That's my pitch on why I like TypeScript.
that's my pitch about why I like Typescript, because it's a live code documentation about the intent you had when you wrote that code. En español, esto es una documentación en vivo de la intención que tú tuviste cuando escribiste ese código. I love it.
Okay, so we're going to start on modal.jsx. So the way that you want to do like a migration from a JSX to a TSX code base is you just say everything that is not in that does not have a TSX file is not strictly checked, right? So I'm going to go here into modal.jsx, and I'm just going to modify this from JSX to TSX, right? And then all of a sudden I'm going to start getting a ton of errors here of like, hey, you need to fix this, right?
Okay. So the other is GSX to TXX. Okay.
Okay. So I'm just getting a bunch of TypeScript errors here. It's like, hey, HTML div element is not assignable to type null. These are all good errors for us to have. So let's just start piece by piece going through this. Get rid of React there because we're not using it. Use effect, use ref. We're going to import mutable object ref and React element from here. And that all looks good. We're going to say that children here are
props.
They are React elements.
Okay. Okay, they are React element.
Oh, that's a return type.
No, this is returning. It's like
inside
exactly,
here,
it's
rather.
Inside of that. Now,
okay, so
you're indicating that this attribute is, this is the shape.
First thing we're going to say here is these children coming in from, as properties, they're going to be React elements. And React elements is basically anything that React can render, which is going to be something of either a JSX type, it could be a null, it could be a bunch of stuff like that. So now we know if you mouse over children, we know that for a fact this is a React element, which is cool.
Exactly. So let me do that as we move on here. Model example. The idea here is to go step by step, step by step to make that progression. Okay, that's the entire reason of this. Okay, that's quite interesting. So in our code, let's go to now is take a look at the model here. We're gonna transform that into a TSX, and this is when now it's interesting because it's like Vite is already detected that for us, so we don't have to configure anything besides that, which is great. Okay, all right. Which is great. Okay, cool. Take a look at the, no, let me close this, close the client here, and this is code splitting. Nothing. We are now on our model here, so let's do it. Exactly, we're looking now at our code, so let's gonna remove React. We're not using in React, And in fact, we're gonna add something called like mutation ref object, and the other is the React element. So this is something interesting because it's not complaining a lot about this. Not I don't know why it doesn't complain too much of that, which is supposed to. Yeah, you're supposed to. Yeah, you supposed to, fella. Yeah, you supposed to. So this is a React element here, and then he say no, it's not. Oh, I get it. Okay, of course, because after all, this is an object. So when we talk about now in our children, this is in fact, oh come on, a React element here. So this is quite something interesting because for some reason it's not detecting that for us. It doesn't matter. Uh, However, when you take a look at this Typescript thing, no, we don't have that. I don't believe you. Oh, we don't have? No. Really? Typescript? Hmm. Okay. 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 Okay, then let's come to actually disable for this workspace. Typescript out importer, Typescript hero, Thunder client, text pastry, tailwinds, snippet generator, semantic div, remote explorer. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's quite interesting because it's not complaining about us. It's like, hey, yeah, he's not complaining about it. Yeah, he's not complaining about it. Unless you are inferring that. Oh, because you are inferring that. It's not complaining because it's inferring. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. That's one of the reasons why it's not complaining, except for this. Is provided. Wait, what? Wait, what? Did I? Oh, that's silly to me. Okay, that makes also a lot of sense. Because I need to indicate that this is the compiler options, my friend. Yep. And now it's supposed to complain properly. All right. It makes a lot of sense. So here we have is this React element. The other is this current, which is actually part of the React mutable object. Okay. All right.
Okay, next thing we're going to say is this LRef here is going to be a mutable ref object, which we have up here, right? But we're going to tell it what type of thing it's going to contain, and it's either going to contain an HTML div object sorry, HTML div element. Or you can see here we instantiate with null, so we have to say or this is null. Okay, and then now if I mouse over lref, I can see that it's either an HTML div or it's a null. And so that means here, that's what I have to do this check here. And now you can see here that every time that I refer to lref.current,
Is now
I can be guaranteed every single
guaranteed
time
that
after
you
this
have it.
point that it's going to be an HTML div element, which is great. Cool. Okay, let's go down to our use effect here. First thing we're going to say here is,
Okay. So as we can see here that it's complaining about something called that is HTML div is not assignable to a type null because it say, hey, what is this? And here you, my friend, is part of the great part of these advanced hooks like useRef that allow us to cherry pick or that to hold a reference of an HTML element or something, an object or a computation that we want us to later on using it. Okay. The shape of this is called mutation ref object, which in our case it must be a HTML element or null, right? So now it's not complaining about that, and the great thing of that is that once we already check that this actually exists, we can actually access to this, which is saying, hey, great, now you can make use of that after you make that check. All right, cool. Next one here is the use effect here. Particularly saying argument of type is not assignable to a parameter of type effect callback. So this, what it's saying us is that this is not the shape that is expected. It's not assignable to a parameter of type effect callback. So what is an effect callback? So type is not assignable to a void or the structure, or to this, or to no is not assignable to type void. Okay. So there are several things that we must do here. It's also complaining about the model root is possibly null. Okay. As well as this. Okay. Remember that when we're doing this, we are saying is on the use effect. So when we're returning something, for example, here we say, hey, this is something that you're gonna run is only once. And when you're returning something, it's pretty much like the life cycle of class component on a mount, which is something that you are doing here. Hey, I want you to unmount. So unmount, during a mount, I want you to remove this. Okay. Question. How can we do this here?
every time that you query the DOM for here from get elements by ID, it can give you back null, right? In theory, if the HTML doesn't have a modal element, what is modal root going to be? It's going to be null. So we have to be kind of defensive about that. So we're going to say if modal root
exists,
or no lref.current, then here we're just going to say return, right? If either one of those doesn't exist anymore, then we're going to be just say like, okay, well, no, we're not going to do that. Now I'm guaranteed here that modal root is definitely an HTML element, because if it was null, it would not get past this point.
Which is very, very specific to this. So what's happening here is this. So we are now is kind of be defensive about what are the type or what are the things that we want us to double check, because we can return is something that doesn't exist, which is exactly what it's doing here. It's evaluating that. It's not a fine type because it can be void. For example, this a model root is possible null, so is pretty much telling you what to do. So is model root exists or doesn't exist, or or yeah, if model root doesn't exist, and or the element ref does not exist, dot current. Okay, now you have to return nothing. Okay, this is also something interesting because after all, it's a argument of type HTML. It can be also null and it's not assignable to a parameter of type node. So here at this point, again we have to be kind of defensive here to say that, right? So if yeah, so if the element current okay, okay. Now if it exists, it say that argument of type HTML null is not assignable to a parameter of type node, meaning that yeah, to a parameter of type node. Type null is not assignable to a type node here. Okay, so I think this is now, because this is a function here and we are inside of this function. So if exactly, so if the l.rev.current exists, this is what you're gonna do. Exactly. So otherwise, return nothing. So pretty much what it's doing is that try to self-correct what is the proper type, the shape of the data here.
So that's why that works. Here we have to again be a little bit more defensive here in this return function here. So we just have to say if there's no modal root, or rather if there is no lref.current, then sorry, if there is, then go ahead and remove it.
Exactly.
There we go. Okay. And now this model,
and otherwise return nothing. And now this model should work.
.tsx looks good. So all of these like if statements you're going to find here, this is a very common theme with particularly when you're porting an old like a JavaScript type code base where you can be kind of loose in, with your types, right? Like here, I wasn't being defensive about modal root never being there because I literally wrote the HTML that has it there, so I'm not really concerned about it being removed, right? So that therefore I was not very defensive about it. But TypeScript is going to make you be very precise about like, nope, we have to provide for all of the cases because we do not allow runtime, errors. Like
exactly. So you can see here. On the model .tsx here, now we are making defensive our code because Typescript is telling us, hey, we don't allow to happen errors. We don't allow to happen runtime errors, which is great. Okay. Hey, uh, I don't allow allow runtime errors to happen. Makes the complaint. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. But the idea here is to, by going into the code, as once you convert that, and then you go line by line of code. So far, we have been
like that.
just self-defensive about it.
Cool. Any questions about this? Does this make sense? All right. So that is modal. Another question you might ask me is like, how do I decide what order to migrate files to? The easiest thing to migrate is like modal itself doesn't really depend on any other of my code, right? It's kind of a leaf node in the sense of like modal is not importing a bunch of other stuff. Therefore, it makes it a good candidate for me to type, because once I finish typing this, you can see this actually has no errors anymore, right? Because it's not importing anything that doesn't use TypeScript. As opposed to if I went and typed, app.jsx for a moment, this imports from adopted pet context, from details, from search params. So even after I finished migrating these files, I would still have type errors, right? Because these are untyped. Therefore, the strict type checking from TypeScript is not going to allow these to go without an error. It's fine, you can still do it, but I like the fact that I'm done with modal.tsx here, and I'm totally done with it. I don't have to do anything more for it. This is totally free of type errors. If I go do app right now, I'm going to finish it, and there's still going to be type errors, which is less fun.
Okay. So another question here is that, how do we start? Okay. How do I know when to start, or at which file? I think it's valid. So at which file? Yeah. Where should I start? Where should I start to migrate? That's a good question, right? That's a very, 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 very good question. So where should I start to migrate? From leaf a component, aka components that doesn't have that have that have zero dependencies with your code base. I think it is. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Boo.
I suppose.
Yep. Yeah, my friend.
We already have an ESLint config for this project. It's here, eslint.rc.json. It's kind of long, right? This is a almost 40 lines of configuration, but it's a very bare bones set of ESLint. It's very much just like make sure that all the plugins work, make sure that I'm following some basic React rules, and like I'm not doing basic JavaScript errors. That's essentially what this ESLint config does. There's a project called ESLint Typescript, which will actually use types for your ESLint checking, so you can actually get like an additional level of like better linting. There used to be a project called TSLint, but TSLint just migrated all of its stuff to ESLint TypeScript, so now there is one stack, which is ESLint and TypeScript together to check your project, which is great. So I need you all to go install npm install -D.
This is the linter that we're going to install.
And this one's a bit of I would recommend that you just copy this because it's kind of long. ESLint-import resolver TypeScript, that's one of them, at 3.5.1 at TypeScript-ESLint/ESLint-plugin at 5.40.1 and at TypeScript ESLint slash parser at the same 5.40.1. Okay. Let those run for a second. Again, that is just in my notes, so you can just copy and paste that directly. This is going to give us ESLint the ability to resolve TS files. That's good. It's going to give us the core project of like using TypeScript inside of your ESLint. That's good. And then the parser, we need some additional parsing logic because ESLint by itself can't understand types, like the colons and the types. Again, that is just in my notes, so you can just copy and paste that directly. This is going to give us ESLint the ability to resolve TS files. That's good. It's going to give us the core project of like using TypeScript inside of your ESLint. That's good. And then the parser, we need some additional parsing logic because ESLint by itself can't understand types, like the colons and the types and things like that. So we needed another parser, which is what that parser is for. In your package.json here, the one thing you need to change here is for your format and for your lint. Just make sure you add TS and TSX here.
So you can extend that.
So that you're typing your TypeScript in your TSX files for both format and lint. You want Prettier to do it too. Prettier already does TypeScript out of the box. No
It already does TypeScript out of the box. No
changes necessary.
Deco formatting that.
Okay, and then come back here to your. And now my TS config is happy. I don't know what happened, but suddenly, I think Mercury was in retrograde, and now it's come like around, and now my Aquarius is aligned with Saturn. It's fine. So now TypeScript is happy. That was a joke. If anyone thinks that I'm serious, okay. Aquarius is aligned with retrograde, and now it's come like around. And now my TS config is happy. I don't know what happened, but suddenly, I think Mercury was in retrograde. And
I think Mercury is in retrograde, and
now it's come like around, and now my Aquarius
is aligned with Saturn. And
it's aligned with Saturn. It's fine. So now TypeScript is happy.
Yeah.
But suddenly.
Yeah, suddenly my Mercury. Yeah, suddenly I think my Mercury was in retrograde, and now it is coming around with Saturn.
I think Mercury was in retrograde, and now it's come like around, and now
it's coming like around. So now I think that Mercury is on retrograde. Now my Aquarius is aligned with Saturn, so now it's fine.
My Aquarius is.
I'm joking.
It's aligned with Saturn. It's fine. So.
Oh my God, that's
happy. I don't know what happened.
It's like oh my God, that was a gym. He dropped a gym, bro. And I love it. Okay, set up TypeScript with ESLint. Okay, so set up TypeScript with ESLint. Okay, I think it's this. Okay, set up TypeScript with ESLint.
But suddenly, I think Mercury was in retrograde, and now it's come like.
So okay, so now here we're going to install is this things here. We're installing. Okay, this is now interesting because now let's go to fix our ESLint to actually detect is a TypeScript. So there was a project called ESLint import resolver with TypeScript. TypeScript ESLint plugin. So this will actually help us to figuring out what will so autocorrect our or giving the style of our code and say, hey, this import that you to help us with our import package. The second here is TypeScript ESLint plugin to let our ESLint to do code linting in your TypeScript code, which is good. And TypeScript ESLint parser, which is something that it needs ESLint to use that. Add the following to ESLint version. Exactly. Inside extend about previous rules, inside rules generally, inside plugins, and add parser, and add to the parser JSON like so. Add the parser. Okay, so it can help us to say, hey, I would like you to help me to link any TypeScript code. This is the plugin that I want you to make use, okay, to help me with that. And inside rules, generally a good rule, but we're going to disable it now for now. No empty functions. And this is the plugin that we say, hey, this is the proper style that we want to give to our TypeScript code. Got it. That was quite interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, and this is the final result. Where here we're saying in the import parsers, we have to tell is this as well as this. Oh my god, okay.
3.5.1 at TypeScript -eslint /eslint parser at the same 5.40. This is going to give us ESLint the ability to resolve TS files. That's good.
Okay, the ability to resolve TS file, which is good here. Okay, now it's time to run this. And which means, let me now do this so you can see what I'm doing. Set up TypeScript with ESLint here. Okay. Okay, so this will give us to first ESLint import resolver TypeScript. Okay. Give us the ability to import TypeScript files. Second is the ability to correct. Okay. What? The ability to correct. The ability to correct our TypeScript code, or to lint, the ability to lint our TypeScript code, which is great. I appreciate that. And the other is the parser that will be used. Oh my god. The other is the parser a tool needed to give us the ability to lint our TypeScript code. Okay. And not only TypeScript code, but also to find things.
It's going to give us the core project of like using TypeScript inside of your ESLint. That's good. And then the parser, we need some additional parsing logic because ESLint by itself can't understand types.
So a tool needed to give us the ability to lint our TypeScript code, because ESLint doesn't understand TypeScript code.
Like the colons and the types. The one thing you need to change here is for your format and for your lint, just make sure you add TS and TSX here so that you're typing your TypeScript in your TS. We already have an ESLint config for this ESLint /recommended. I don't know why I always do these in like, I sort them based on the length of the string, but this is also, I don't know why, there's like some ASMR effect here that just makes me happy that it's like a nice
Here
little
what it is
staircase.
to fix is the
Like if I
format
put it there,
here
I hope all of you would
and
be
the
upset. And he's
link.
like, no, Brian, change it.
Okay,
Okay.
to say
Sorry.
TX and TXX.
I've been teaching too much this class. I'm starting to get delirious, and it's fine. Okay, so we're gonna add in here a rule under. This is just one that I don't want to go fix, so we're just gonna turn it. Sorry. I've been teaching too much this class. I'm starting to get delirious, and it's fine. Here that just makes me happy that it's like a nice little staircase. I sort them based on the length of the string, but this is also, I don't know why, there's like some ASMR effect here that just makes me happy that it's like a nice little staircase. At Typescript -eslint /recommended. At Typescript, that I'm serious. Okay, Aquarius is aligned with Saturn. Mercury was in retrograde.
Exactly. That's right. Now add that to your npm script, which is here. Okay. No, I get it. Anything you move now? Okay. Which is here in the package JSON. So in the package.json, you say something like this. So now that Mercury, I think that now that Mercury is retrograde. Yeah, now I think that Mercury is retrograde. Okay. So I think that now Mercury is, yeah, so I think that now that Mercury is retrograde and Saturn is aligned with the moon. Okay.
And now it's come like around, and now my Aquarius is aligned with Saturn. It's
exactly. And it's retrograde, and now my Aquarius is aligned with Saturday. Yeah, Aquarius is aligned with Jupiter. Okay, so I think now that Mercury is retrograde now, so now I think that now that Mercury is retrograde and about with my Aquarius is aligned with Jupiter, it is fine then. It is fine then.
fine. So now TypeScript is happy.
So TypeScript is happy. That was a joke.
It was a joke. If anyone thinks that I'm serious, okay. Maybe I'm not. ESLintRC.json. Here, just add another extends here. We need a plugin : at Typescript -eslint /recommended.
Okay.
I don't know why I always do these in like
Okay. It's quite interesting because now we go to our ESLint configuration file, which is ESLint for the context here, and say, hey, I want you to now add in this plugin we already installed here. No, we didn't install that. Lovely. I thought we did. Let me in fact go to that particular code and say this. Where now I am installing is this. Say hey. Okay. So now that I installed that properly, so we can say, hey, plugins here. It'll be the Typescript. It's not helping here. It's actually not helping me here with that, which is plugin dot Typescript recommended. Perhaps it's something more elaborate that, which is okay. Plugin Typescript ESLint. Okay, because we're using is Typescript ESLint. There was a project called TSLint, but now it's no longer available because they merged that into one stack of the ESLint. But you have to extend that functionality from our linter ESLint. Things they do that. So Typescript ESLint recommended. Okay. The next things to do is add this inside of the general rules. Okay. So inside of our general rules, we need to actually do this for now. No empty functions, which is our particular rules that we have, that we want to tell our ESLint, hey, I want you to do this linting for me, particularly with the Typescript. Okay. I also want you to recognize is the plugins here of Typescript, okay, which is now extending the functionality of the ESLint by adding now Typescript compilation. So now in your parser, we need to find a way to add that, but it seems that we need to add the parser to our project here. Okay, especially if you are integrating that with Typescript. And now on the project, this is when we say, hey, this is the configuration that I want you to take a look at this. Remember, this was previously designed to help to linting code to write proper ESLint or ECMAScript syntax style. It helps us with to write with the proper ECMAScript style for that, which is good. But now we are enhancing that with Typescript. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we have this, to tell the hey, what the parser, okay, as well as the project, which is where is the configuration file for this, and replace the settings here for that, which is coming into this on the settings here. Yeah, which is here. So before we have import resolver here, which is say no and all of this, the thing that changed here, okay, so if we can take a look at the before and then after that, is that now we need to use is the model, the Typescript model resolution, the parser for that. As you can see is this. Again, remember that this is all about ESLint enhancing the capability with Typescript. Okay.
Sort them based on the length of the string. Brian changed. We're going to add in here a rule under dots. We're going to put inside of that text to Otherwise, it doesn't know how to run your
Oh,
so you can just say dot.
exactly. It is interesting that it doesn't complain about it. Okay. Yeah, that was quite interesting that it doesn't complain about it.
You would wish that it would just look for the TS config automatically. It's always called that, but not the case. Settings. Okay, we have React detect. That's good. The import parsers. This was a lot of quotes, code stuff. Try. This was a lot to get, and it's like the level of nesting is important here. So I'm not going to fault you if you just pop over to the project and grab the completed eslint.rc.json. Not really a ton to learn here. It's just setting up eslint is, again, worrying if Mercury is in retrograde or not.
What if your Mercury is retrograde or not? Yeah, worrying if Mercury is retrograde or not.
Okay, so now we have this. I think hopefully we should be able to run npm run lint. Cool. We are not getting anything out of the MIT, which is I think what we are expecting, which is good.
Exactly. So now it is time to see if this actually works as expected. npm run lint. Okay. Which is good. He's not complaining about it. Okay. This is the final format, the final shape of this. Okay, this is the final shape of this. This is our ES lint source.json. I think that's the name it is. Exactly. Alright. And now to verify that, let's run npm run lint.
Oh yeah. So actually in my notes here at the bottom, I have a completed, just to show you, down here at the bottom. If you just want to copy and paste this, you will get no fault from me. This is the entire thing. You can get a little bit more aggressive with your linting if you want to, and we're going to, since this was not that much lift for us, but if you're on like a big project, this could be a big lift for you. Typescript dash eslint slash recommended requiring type checking. This is basically going to say like everything has to be type checked. We are not going to allow you to do anything that isn't run through the TypeScript parser or like the TypeScript project. So again, this is going to be a bit more aggressive. My suggestion is maybe start or add this one maybe at the end of like once you've finished your TypeScript migration, and then it's going to enforce that people continue to keep your TypeScripts up to date.
Question: do we have that on the particular code base? Yeah, do we have that in a particular code base? You know? Ooh, the help is supposed to be here. There's a Typescript configuration file. It has no, it must tell something like Typescript configure. That's right. And the ESLint for that. We have this Babel, but this is a transpiler. App.config is not. We don't have any ESLint. Oh my god. Yes, global setup. Yes, env. Yes, config. Yeah, we don't have that. Coverage. assets, Android, VS Code. We close this. We don't edit. You got it. No, but this is the ignore. Yes, the config here. This is all the thing that we're ignoring here. Pre-read config. Alright, makes sense. GS config here. DS config. Holy hell. Okay, they are okay to make this thing. Okay, using import config, and here is when we have is this. No explicit any, no empty functions, ban ts commit, and I got recommended rule because this is part of the TypeScript config. And they create a lot of these small variables as a way to make it much more easy to work with. Okay, and then import x ignore pre-config, yes config, TypeScript config, test config. You use import source vid config, yes. So they make this as it is. Okay. You have TypeScript ESLint with TypeScript, which must come here. This is part of the. Okay, this is how you define the definition here. This, in fact, supposed to be some sort of function here. You define here exactly from your plugin. Okay, makes sense. Okay. Okay, they disable all of this. Okay, let's previously no use var ban, no empty. This is test config with the rules. Yeah, this particular project is like okay. Yeah, the particular project is like okay. This particular project here, especially with the mobile driver app, is kind of like that. And in the e-ticket here, where is? Ooh, no, must live here, which is on the client. What you're supposed to have is this. Where this is the overrides and the rules. Where we okay, we're looking is at the extents, which is using is the configuration from ESLint, view essentials, and view TypeScript. Oh my god. For some reason, do they have is this setup using holy moly. Okay, but this is the e-ticket. I get it. This is the e-ticket where they set up things like that. This is the extent. This is the plugin that help us here, as well as a parser. Okay, and some additional rules to help us with giving proper style to our code. Okay, very non-specific instructions for here. Okay, I think this is something interesting.
All right, so let's see how that does now. You can see here it adds a ton of errors because now it's enforcing all of our JavaScript to say like, hey, this isn't typed. You have a lot of any types in here. So this gets pretty aggressive pretty quick. Errors because
recommend the required type check.
Because
yeah. So this Mm-hmm. So, business use case. Add this. This is more aggressive. Yeah, this is more aggressive and is to insist on once you migrate all of your Typescript code, okay, so this is more aggressive and is to insist that once you migrate all of your Typescript code, it keeps as it is by making type checking or by making type checking required. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. All right.
We're gonna go do details.
Okay, so that'll be for this video.
We're
Okay.
gonna go do details.
So take care. Bye bye.